Have you ever wondered why we buy millions of flowers on one specific day in spring? Or why a holiday meant to celebrate fierce, rebellious women is now mostly about chocolate and polite text messages? Welcome to our channel. Today we are talking about the wild, hidden, and totally misunderstood history of March 8th. Yes, International Women's Day. I promise you that by the end of this video, you will look at those delicate spring bouquets in a completely different way. Let us be honest for a second. Most people think this day is just a brilliant marketing trick invented by greeting card companies to make us spend our money. But what if I told you that the real story involves secret meetings, massive revolutions, and women who literally changed the calendar of the entire world? Are you ready to find out the truth? Do you think the holiday has lost its real meaning, or is it better the way it is now? Let me know your stance in the comments below, because this is going to be a bumpy ride through history. To really understand what is going on, we need to travel back in time. We are heading to the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The world was changing rapidly. Industrialization was booming, massive factories were popping up everywhere, and people were moving to big cities in huge numbers. But this new, modern world was not a comfortable place for everyone. Women were entering the workforce in massive numbers, but they were facing terrible conditions. They worked incredibly long hours, received tiny paychecks, and had zero right to vote in political elections. There was a boiling pot of frustration, anger, and a deep desire for fairness. Across Europe and the United States, radical thinkers, labor unions, and brave activists started organizing. They realized that if they did not demand their rights loudly, nobody was going to simply hand them over. This period of intense social struggle is the true breeding ground for the holiday we now celebrate, with polite smiles and sweet cakes. It was a time of fire, passion, and desperate demand for change. Let us start with the very beginning of this global phenomenon. When you think of March 8th, you probably picture beautiful bouquets, sweet greeting cards, and boxes of chocolate. But the reality is completely different. The true origin of this day is not about delicate flowers at all. It is about fierce courage and burning factories. Picture this in your mind. It is the early 20th century, specifically the year 1908. In the busy, crowded streets of New York City, 15,000 women decided they had absolutely had enough. They marched through the city, demanding shorter working hours, much better pay, and the fundamental right to vote. This was not a polite or quiet parade. It was a loud, passionate, and dangerous protest. These women worked in terrible, unsafe conditions in garment factories. They were tired, hungry, and incredibly angry. Here is a bright example for this block. Imagine working 14 hours a day in a dark, dusty room with locked doors, barely making enough money to buy a single loaf of bread. That was their daily reality. They stood up bravely against powerful factory owners. This completely breaks the modern myth that Women's Day was simply invented by greeting card companies to sell more paper products. No, my friends, that is entirely false. It was born on the cold, hard streets of New York. It was born from the sweat and tears of working women who simply wanted a fair chance at a good life. This massive strike laid the foundation for everything that followed later. Now let us move across the ocean to Europe, where the idea really caught fire and became official. Enter a woman named Clara Zetkin. She was a fiery German activist who did not like to take no for an answer. In the year 1910, there was a massive conference of working women held in Copenhagen, Denmark. Clara stood up in front of over 100 women from 17 different countries. She boldly proposed that every single year, in every single country, there should be a celebration on the same day, a Women's Day. The goal was to press for their demands and make their voices heard globally. The women at the conference loved the idea so much that they agreed unanimously. Not a single person voted against it. Here is a bright example of how this worked. Imagine trying to organize a global event today without the internet, without smartphones, and without social media. Clara and her friends did it using only letters, telegrams, and pure determination. They built a massive international network from scratch. Let us quickly debunk a popular myth here. Many people think International Women's Day was an American invention that was forced upon the rest of the world. That is completely wrong. While the spark happened in New York, it was a German woman in Denmark who turned it into a true global movement. It was a beautiful example of international teamwork that transcended borders and languages. Clara's brilliant idea changed the month of March forever. Here is a mystery that confuses almost everyone. Why exactly do we celebrate on the 8th of March? You might think Clara Zetkin picked this specific date because of some deep, symbolic reason. Well, prepare to be surprised. At that famous conference in 1910, no specific date was actually chosen. For the first few years, the holiday was celebrated on completely different days, in late February and early March. The exact date of March 8th comes from a massive historical event in Russia. In the year 1917, Russian women began a huge strike demanding peace and bread. This strike actually forced the Russian Tsar to give up his throne. Now here is the crazy part. On the Julian calendar, which Russia used at the time, this massive strike started on Sunday, February 23rd. But on the Gregorian calendar, which the rest of the world used, that exact same day was March 8th. Here is a clear illustration for you. Imagine throwing a giant birthday party, but half of your friends are using a totally different calendar. When the world eventually synced up its calendars, March 8th became the permanent, official date. Let us debunk a myth right now. Many believe the date was chosen by the United Nations to perfectly align with the beginning of spring. Nope. The date was chosen entirely by accident because of a massive revolution and a confusing difference between two historical calendars. It is funny how such a monumental global holiday was decided by a simple scheduling quirk. Let us dive deeper into those incredible colours associated with the movement. Have you ever noticed that purple, green and white are often used in campaigns for women's rights? This is not just a random fashion choice made by a graphic designer. These colours have deep, historical roots. They originated from the Women's Social and Political Union in the United Kingdom back in the year 1908. Each colour has a very specific and powerful meaning. Purple signifies justice and dignity. Green symbolises hope for a better future. And white represents purity. Although this concept is a bit outdated today. Here is a vivid example. Imagine thousands of women marching down the streets of London, all wearing beautiful sashes of purple, green and white. It was a brilliant visual strategy. It made them look organised, unified and impossible to ignore. It was basically early branding, long before modern marketing even existed. Now, it is time to destroy a very annoying myth. There is a huge misconception today that the official colour of International Women's Day is pink. You see pink everywhere in stores during March. Pink ribbons, pink boxes, pink marketing campaigns. But historically speaking, pink has absolutely nothing to do with the original movement. The real pioneers wore purple and green to demand justice, not pink to look cute. The pink colour scheme is a modern invention designed entirely to sell consumer goods. So if you really want to honour the history this year, wear something purple. Now we must address the giant elephant in the room. How did a day famous for angry protests, striking workers, and demands for voting rights turn into a day of giving flowers and sweet chocolates? This transformation is truly fascinating. As the decades passed, especially after women slowly gained the right to vote in many countries, the tone of the holiday began to shift. The political fire slowly cooled down, and society started treating the day more like a combination of Valentine's Day and Mother's Day. The focus moved from demanding equal rights to simply expressing appreciation for the women in our lives. Here is an easy example to understand this shift. Think about how Halloween started as a terrifying ancient ritual to ward off evil ghosts, and now it is just kids dressing up as superheroes to get free candy. Holidays evolve based on what society wants them to be. Let us debunk a common myth here. Many people argue that women gave up the political fight because they got lazy, and that is why the holiday became soft. That is absolutely false. The holiday changed because massive corporations realized they could make a fortune by selling gifts. They heavily marketed the idea of romance and appreciation, slowly pushing the political history into the shadows. The activists never stopped fighting for equality. Their voices were simply drowned out by loud advertisements for expensive perfumes and giant teddy bears. Let us travel to beautiful Italy to uncover one of the most unique and charming traditions of March 8th. If you walk the streets of Rome or Milan on this day, you will not see red roses or pink tulips everywhere. Instead, you will see a sea of bright yellow flowers. These are called mimosa flowers. This tradition started back in the year 1946, shortly after the end of the Second World War. Italian feminists wanted to choose a flower to symbolize the day. They picked the yellow mimosa because it blooms early in the spring, making it a perfect symbol of fresh beginnings and new life. But more importantly, despite looking very fragile and delicate, the mimosa is actually an incredibly strong plant that can grow in difficult environments. Here is a wonderful example of this tradition in action. Picture an Italian bakery on the morning of March 8th. Not only are people buying real mimosa flowers, but bakers actually make a special mimosa cake. It is a delicious sponge cake covered in crumbled yellow cake pieces to look exactly like the flower. Time to bust a myth. People often assume that the red rose is the universal, undisputed symbol of love and appreciation everywhere in the world on this day. But the Italian mimosa proves that different cultures find their own unique, beautiful ways to celebrate strength and resilience. The yellow mimosa perfectly captures the true spirit of the original activists. It looks lovely, but it is tough as nails. It is crucial to talk about how this holiday finally gained the ultimate global stamp of approval. For many decades, International Women's Day was celebrated by millions, but it was not officially recognised by the biggest international organisation on earth. That all changed in the late 20th century. In the year 1975, the United Nations celebrated International Women's Year. Then 2 years later, in 1977, the United Nations officially adopted the holiday. They asked all member states to proclaim a day for women's rights and world peace. This was a massive turning point. It brought the holiday out of the realm of radical activism and placed it squarely into mainstream global politics. Here is a powerful example of what this means. Imagine a small local festival suddenly being sponsored by the biggest global government body. Suddenly, schools, giant corporations, and national governments had to pay attention. They started organising massive official events and conferences. Now let us smash a stubborn myth. A lot of people think that because the United Nations recognised the day, it instantly fixed women's rights globally. They think the UN waved a magic wand and solved everything in 1977. Sadly, that is a huge myth. The UN recognition was a powerful symbolic gesture, but symbols do not instantly change laws or societal habits. It was a great start, but the hard work on the ground had to continue, and it still continues today. Let us talk about a topic that makes a lot of people quite jealous: the day off from work. Did you know that in many countries around the world, March 8th is an official, government-mandated public holiday? Yes, you heard that right. While people in the United States and the United Kingdom are sitting at their desks working a normal 8-hour shift, millions of people elsewhere are sleeping in. In countries like Russia, Cuba, Vietnam, and Uganda, banks are closed, schools are shut down, and nobody goes to the office. It is treated with the exact same level of importance as Christmas or New Year's Day. Here is a clear example for you. Imagine waking up on a Tuesday morning in Moscow. The streets are quiet, there is no rush hour traffic, and families are spending the day together having a massive festive lunch. It completely changes the vibe of the day from a simple awareness campaign to a major cultural event. Time to clear up a common myth. Many people in Western countries believe that March 8th is just a minor social media holiday, like National Donut Day or Talk Like a Pirate Day. They have no idea that it is actually a legally binding public holiday for hundreds of millions of people across the globe. The difference in how this day is treated legally shows just how differently cultures view the historical importance of the movement. For some, it is a hashtag. For others, it is a day of national rest. Now we must discuss the bizarre situation in China, which has a very unique approach to this day. In China, March 8th is not a full public holiday for everyone, but it is officially recognised by the government with a fascinating twist. State regulations actually advise that women should be given a half day off from work. That is right, just half a day, and only for women. The men are expected to stay in the office and finish their tasks while their female colleagues get to go home early. Here is a vivid picture of how this works. Imagine the clock striking noon in a massive office building in Beijing. Suddenly, half the workforce packs up their bags, says goodbye, and leaves to enjoy a free afternoon of shopping, relaxing, or spending time with friends, while the guys are left staring at their computers. Let us bust a major myth here. People often think that if a country has laws protecting this holiday, it means true equality has been achieved. But this half-day rule in China actually sparks a lot of debate. Many modern Chinese women argue that giving them half a day off to go shopping is totally missing the point of the original protests. They say it feels like a gimmick rather than a step towards equal pay and career advancement. It is a perfect example of how a nice gesture, on paper, can sometimes clash with the real, serious goals of the historical movement. It is a complex situation wrapped in a seemingly nice gift. Let us pivot to talk about the dark side of modern celebrations, the intense commercialization and something known as the pink tax. Over the past 20 years, big brands realized they could make a lot of money on March 8th. Suddenly, every company is releasing limited edition products. Pink running shoes, special expensive cosmetics, and even pink tools. The problem is not just the colour, it is the price. Often these products marketed specially for women cost significantly more than the exact same products marketed to men. This is the infamous pink tax. Here is an easy example to digest. Imagine walking into a pharmacy. You see a blue razor for men that costs $3. Right next to it is a pink razor for women, doing the exact same job, but it costs $5. And on March 8th, it might be put in a pretty gift box and sold for $10 under the guise of empowerment. Time to destroy a modern corporate myth. The myth is that when a giant corporation changes its logo to purple or releases a female empowerment commercial on this day, they are doing it purely out of the goodness of their hearts. The reality is that it is often a carefully calculated marketing strategy designed to boost first quarter sales. True support means fair wages and equal leadership opportunities within the company, not just selling overpriced pink merchandise once a year. The original activists would probably be furious to see their strike turned into a shopping festival. Let us take a trip to a country that took the spirit of this day to an entirely new, mind-blowing level. We are going to Iceland in the year 1975. While this event did not happen exactly on March 8th, it perfectly embodies the true soul of the holiday. Icelandic women were tired of being paid less and not being respected, so they decided to go on strike. But they did not just stop working at their official jobs. They stopped doing absolutely everything. They stopped cooking, they stopped cleaning, and they stopped taking care of the children. 90% of the female population in the entire country simply stopped functioning for one day. Here is a hilarious and powerful example. Imagine the banks closing because there are no tellers. Imagine fathers desperately bringing their small children to the office, trying to work while feeding them sausages because there is no one else to do it. The entire country practically shut down in pure chaos. Let us debunk a myth that says peaceful protests never achieve real, tangible results. Many cynics claim that marching and striking is just a waste of time, but this famous day off in Iceland proved them completely wrong. It showed the entire nation that society literally cannot function without women's labour, both paid and unpaid. Just 5 years later, Iceland elected the world's first democratically elected female president. This event is the ultimate proof that the original radical spirit of the movement actually works wonders. We need to talk about the awkward role of men on this holiday. Every year, without fail, The exact same question trends on search engines globally. When is International Men's Day? Some men feel completely left out, or even defensive on March 8th. They scramble to buy flowers, feeling a mix of obligation and confusion about what the day actually represents today. Some men try to overcompensate by doing all the housework for one single day, acting like absolute heroes for washing the dishes once a year. Here is a classic example you have probably seen. A husband buys a giant expensive bouquet, posts a picture on social media with a long emotional caption about how much he respects his wife, and then goes right back to playing video games while she cooks dinner. It is performative appreciation. Let us smash a very toxic myth right now. The myth is that International Women's Day is inherently an anti-men holiday. This is entirely false. The push for equality is not a pizza. Giving more rights and respect to women does not mean there are fewer rights left in the box for men. The original activists were fighting against an unfair system, not against individual men. True celebration of this day by men does not require grand, expensive gestures or feeling guilty. It just requires listening, supporting equal opportunities, and maybe doing the dishes on the other 364 days of the year too. Let us fast forward to the modern era and look at how the internet has completely hijacked and transformed March 8th. In the past, you needed a poster and a megaphone to celebrate. Today, all you need is a smartphone and a clever hashtag. Social media has turned the holiday into a massive global trending topic. Every year, there is a specific official theme. Themes like break the bias or inspire inclusion. Millions of people post selfies, posing with specific hand gestures to show their support. Celebrities write long essays on their profiles, and influencers make perfectly edited videos about empowerment. Here is a clear example of this digital shift. Imagine a teenager in Brazil, a grandmother in Japan, and a student in Canada, all using the exact same hashtag on the exact same day to share their personal stories of overcoming obstacles. It creates an incredible feeling of global unity that Clara Zetkin could only dream of back in 1910. But we need to bust a modern digital myth. The myth is that clicking, like on an empowerment post or using a trendy hashtag, actually changes the world. While raising awareness is genuinely great, digital activism can sometimes make us incredibly lazy. We feel like we did our part just by posting a photo. But real change requires real action in the real world. A hashtag will not change the laws. Only real people doing hard work can do that. Let us look at some of the absolute strangest and most bizarre ways companies have tried to celebrate this day. Corporate human resources departments often panic in early March. They want to show they care, but they usually fail miserably. Instead of offering better maternity leave or equal pay audits, they offer strange, useless gifts. Over the years, we have seen some truly ridiculous corporate attempts. Here is a painfully funny example for you. Imagine a massive bank that pays its female employees 20% less than the men. To celebrate March 8th, they give every woman a single branded pink pen and a small cupcake with the company logo on it. Yes, this really happens all the time. Or consider a fast food chain that temporarily turns its logo upside down for 24 hours to represent a W for women, but does not improve the working conditions of the women flipping burgers in the kitchen. Let us completely debunk the myth that these corporate gifts are a sign of real progress. The myth is that giving out cupcakes means the company is a champion of equality. In reality, these bizarre, cheap gifts are often used to distract employees from the real issues. It is much cheaper for a giant company to buy 1,000 pink pens than it is to adjust everyone's salary to be fair. These strange traditions highlight the massive gap between the holiday's radical roots and today's corporate public relations strategies. It is time to shine a light on the forgotten heroes of this day. We always hear about politicians and famous historical leaders, but we rarely talk about the women in science, technology, and engineering on March 8th. Throughout history, women who made mind-blowing scientific discoveries were often pushed to the side, and male colleagues took all the credit and the shiny medals. March 8th is slowly becoming a day to correct the historical record and celebrate these hidden geniuses. Here is an incredible example you should know. Think about Rosalind Franklin. She was a brilliant chemist whose work was absolutely essential for understanding the molecular structures of DNA. But it was her male colleagues who received the Nobel Prize, while her name was barely mentioned for decades. Today, campaigns on March 8th are actively working to make her name, and many others, famous. Time to destroy a persistent and annoying myth. There is an old, deeply rooted myth that women naturally lack the brain structure for hard sciences and mathematics. That is why history books are full of male inventors. That is complete garbage. The reality is that women were actively banned from universities and laboratories for centuries. When they did manage to do the work, their research was often stolen. Celebrating these scientific pioneers today proves that the lack of famous female scientists in history was due to closed doors, not closed minds. Let us talk about the huge generational divide when it comes to celebrating today. If you ask a 70-year-old and a 20-year-old what March 8th means to them, you will get two entirely different answers. Older generations often view it through the lens of pure tradition. For them, it is a polite spring holiday, a day for husbands to buy flowers and for families to gather for a nice meal. It is comfortable and expected, but the younger generation, especially Generation Z, is ripping up that polite script. They are looking back at the angry protests of 1908 and saying, "We want that energy back." Here is a perfect example of this clash. Picture a family dinner. The grandfather hands his granddaughter a bouquet of pink tulips and tells her to always stay sweet and beautiful. The granddaughter accepts the flowers, but then spends the dinner passionately arguing about the gender pay gap, reproductive rights, and systemic bias in the modern workplace. It is a total culture shock happening at the same dinner table. Let us debunk the myth that young people today do not care about history or tradition. People often say the youth are lazy and disconnected. The truth is the exact opposite. Young people care so much about the true history of this day that they are actively trying to strip away the corporate fluff and return the holiday to its original, radical, and demanding roots. They just prefer protest over polite pastries. We really need to discuss the massive environmental impact of this single holiday. You might not realise it, but March 8th is an absolute nightmare for Mother Nature. Millions upon millions of cut flowers are purchased worldwide within a 48-hour window. Have you ever stopped to wonder how a fresh red rose magically appears in a snowy city in the middle of March? It requires an incredible amount of logistics. Here is a clear, shocking example. Imagine giant cargo planes flying thousands of miles from farms in Kenya or Colombia to deliver these flowers to Europe and North America. These planes burn tons of fossil fuels. Then, the flowers are kept in massive, energy-sucking, refrigerated trucks so they do not wilt before you buy them. The carbon footprint of a single bouquet is shockingly high. Now let us smash a very innocent myth. The myth is that buying flowers is the most natural, eco-friendly gift you can give because flowers come from the earth. While flowers are natural, the massive global industrial flower trade is absolutely not. It uses heavy pesticides, massive amounts of water, and huge amounts of airplane fuel. Many modern activists are starting to point this out. They argue that celebrating a day of progress by heavily polluting the planet makes absolutely no sense. They are encouraging people to buy local potted plants or donate to charity instead of buying imported dying flowers. Let us explore the powerful connection between this holiday and the world of arts and entertainment. Movies, books, and music play a massive role in how we perceive the world. On March 8th, there is a huge push to consume media created by women. Streaming platforms create special categories highlighting female directors. Bookstores put novels written by women front and centre. This is a crucial step because, for the longest time, the stories we consumed were told almost entirely from a male perspective. Here is a fantastic example of why this matters. Think about the classic action movies of the 1980s. The hero was always a giant muscular man saving a completely helpless woman. Those movies taught society a very specific lesson about gender roles. But when women sit in the director's chair or write the script, the characters become complex, flawed, and incredibly strong in their own unique ways. Time to debunk a stubborn myth in the entertainment industry. The myth states that movies with female leads, or directed by women, simply do not make money at the box office, so studios should not invest in them. Recently, movies like Barbie completely shattered that myth by making over $1 billion globally. It proved that audiences are incredibly hungry for stories told from different perspectives. March 8th serves as an annual reminder to Hollywood that female-led art is not just important for equality, it is also incredibly profitable. We must also talk about intersectionality, which is a big word with a very simple and important meaning for this holiday. In the early days of the movement, the loudest voices often belonged to wealthy, white women. They fought hard, but their demands did not always include the struggles of women of colour, poor women, or women in developing nations. Today, the modern celebration of March 8th is desperately trying to fix that historical blind spot. Intersectionality simply means understanding that a person's experience is shaped by multiple factors, like race, class, and gender, all mixed together. Here is a very clear example. Imagine two women demanding equal pay. One is a wealthy executive in a fancy office in New York. The other is a farm worker in South America. While they both face gender discrimination, the farm worker also faces extreme poverty and lack of basic legal protection. Their battles are completely different. Let us debunk a dangerous myth that harms the movement. The myth is that all women everywhere experience discrimination in the exact same way, and therefore, one simple solution will fix everything for everyone. This is fundamentally false. The challenges faced by a woman in a wealthy European country are radically different from those faced by a woman in a war-torn region. True celebration today means acknowledging these vast differences and fighting for those who are the most vulnerable, not just the most privileged. Finally, let us look to the future of International Women's Day. What will this holiday look like in 50 or 100 years? Will we still be buying overpriced pink cupcakes, or will the day evolve into something completely unrecognisable? Many experts believe that as society slowly inches towards true equality, the need for a massive, separate day of activism might actually decrease. The ultimate paradoxical goal of the original activists was to create a world where a special day demanding equal rights was no longer necessary. Here is a hopeful example of what the future could hold. Imagine a world 50 years from now where the gender pay gap is a bizarre concept taught only in history books. In that world, March 8th might just become a quiet day of historical remembrance, much like how we remember the end of past wars. It would be a day to say thank you to the ancestors, rather than a day to fight the current system. Let us debunk the final, most pessimistic myth. The myth is that nothing ever really changes, and we will be fighting these exact same battles forever. If we look at the incredible progress made since those brave women marched through New York in 1908, we see that massive fundamental change is absolutely possible. It is slow, it is frustrating, and it is messy, but the trajectory is moving forward. The future of this day depends entirely on what we choose to do with it today. So, there you have it. We have journeyed from the smoke-filled, angry streets of early 20th century New York to the accidental calendar mix-up in Russia, all the way to the bizarre corporate cupcakes of the modern era. The history of March 8th is not a simple, sweet fairy tale about spring flowers. It is a gritty, powerful, and sometimes messy story of fierce determination, global solidarity, and a constant tug-of-war between radical activism and commercial marketing. The most surprising twist is how a day born from fire and strikes was slowly repackaged into a pink holiday, yet the original fighting spirit still survives just beneath the surface, waiting for younger generations to ignite it again. It is a reminder that the rights we enjoy today were not freely given. They were fought for by people who refused to stay quiet. To sum it all up, Enjoy the beautiful flowers and the sweet chocolates if you get them, but never forget the brave, relentless women who built this day from the ground up. Thank you so much for watching and uncovering this hidden history with us. If you learnt something new today, please hit that subscribe button, leave a huge like, and share this video with your friends. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think we should keep celebrating with flowers and gifts, or should we return to the radical protests of the past? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let us start a great debate.